get your hopes up because it does not work.
Welcome to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded. Today, we're going to be talking about the lessons that have been learned, especially over the last little while. But before we do that, let's jump into a couple of announcements really quickly. We have our preppertalkradio.com. Scott is really putting a lot of work and effort into building out a really nice website for everybody. And we're going to start doing some mail out. So make sure you go to our website, click on the resources tab, put in your name and email there, and make sure you get on our email list.
Start doing mail outs?
Well, no, you've been doing emails. I know, but
glorious feasts of preparedness knowledge going out weekly.
Yes, so, weekly emails are going out. So make sure you're on our email list, and so that we can get those emails in your inbox of preparedness and be ready to go. So good news, everybody who's been wondering, Scott is back. Scott's feeling better. We're going to talk a little bit about, we'll let him kind of share his story in a minute. Let's remind everybody, though, that if you need a first aid kit, you need to go to our friends at amp-3.net and get a first aid kit. Use code PrepperTalk, and you'll get 15% off those first aid kits over there. And also remember, a couple episodes we had a great new invention. Well, it's not new, but it's new to us, the H2Go water purifier. And that thing, yeah, I think it's awesome. It's amazing. It's a very good deal price wise, because especially once the lifetime, the value is absolutely there. And if you go to h2gopurifier.com, we'll have links in the description as well. And but H2Go Purifier, use code PrepperTalk, and you'll get $6 off of that H2Go Purifier. Purifies water, gets rid of all the bugs. Don't need extra filters. This thing works, and it can last you for many years. Solar powered. The whole thing is just really well put together. And if you want to check out that episode, it's the H2Go water purifier episode. I think it was last month, but check that out to learn more. Let's get started. Today we have Scott and Shane and myself. Scott's back. Scott's feeling better. Hopefully he's ready to hit it hard. So Scott, tell us a little bit about your recovery and what happened to you.
Dude, so as most of you guys know, 2 years ago, I had a back injury. Went nuts. I'm going to wave HIPAA on this one. Multi-layer spondylosis. Basically, it breaks it down this way. I have 3 herniated discs in my lower back, not to mention the 2 that are herniated in my neck. Those all happened 3 years ago. On top of that, I have disc degeneration disease and fluid on the actual vertebrae, in the vertebrae that's not supposed to be there. And I won the grand prize. I've also got scoliosis.
Oh, dang, bro.
What? So, yeah, surgery was awesome. It sucked so bad the day after, but then every day since then, it's just gotten better and better, less and less pain, more and more mobility. And then, I don't know anyone else who deals with post-surgery plugging of the bowels. Like, that sucked for a few days. But I have gotten through the first week of recovery. It was horrible in regards to some effects of the body, but then the pain relief alone, I feel like a new man. Like, I can actually jump and not want to fall over and cry and die. I can lift things. I'm trying to be careful and cautious in everything I'm doing, but it is so good. So everyone that's been wondering and asking, I've gotten so many well wishes, direct messages from a lot of you. Thank you. Your prayers have been heard. My prayers have been heard. Thank you. I feel so much better. This is the first time I've like been smiley every day for a week.
So your countenance is definitely lighter, brighter. You look better,
dude. I feel night and day different, and it's amazing. So
that's awesome.
Surgery was fantastic. My doctor actually used my results and my pre-surgical data at a conference he went to. He's like, I gotta teach everybody how to do this because they've been doing it. And so they used me as a case study without revealing my name or, my 007 status. Mm-hmm. And it was awesome. He's like, yeah, it was really great. We trained 11 doctors, 17 PAs, and a group of other people utilizing me as kind of a case study. But wow, it's night and day, man. Night and day. It's so much better.
That's awesome.
So lessons learned. We're talking about lessons learned. So Scott, give us a lessons learned from this experience, right? What looking back, hindsight's 2020, right?
No employer is worth hurting yourself for.
There you go.
or
There you go.
continuing to work after you're hurt. No employer. They do not care. They do not care. Your family and your life is more important. Your health is more important than getting that one thing done by yourself that shouldn't be done by yourself.
Yeah. I remember that. I don't know when you had called me several times when you're like, I just stepped in a thing and twisted my back and now I can't finish the work. And I'm like, Scott, dude, what are you doing to yourself? I just remember more than once that happened. And I'm like, bro, I'm so glad you're out of that and you're in a better career even right now and just doing
broken ankle twice. Yeah, that was.
And so how do we take that and plug it into preparedness as well? I mean, obviously there's probably a million places we could plug that in.
I've gone through my year supply of ibuprofen, white willow, and
okay, there you go.
There you go. I've gone through and started looking at herbal remedies. Thank you to Nicole Pellion and her Lost Book of Herbal Remedies book, because I've used that with helping to reduce some of the pain in my back with some poultices, utilizing willow bark instead of ibuprofen. I've also actually used it when I hurt my ankle to pull the swelling. So if you guys want to check that out, go to preppertalkradio.com. We got a link to it on our resources page. There's a lot of books we recommend, and they're books we have. We don't recommend one one of us at least doesn't have. So you guys can check those out over there. But yeah, it's lessons learned, man. It's always, this also goes to just hey, I'm going to work on my car, right? You think, oh, it's a 20-minute project. It takes 10 times longer. Everything takes longer than we imagine it to take.
Mm-hmm.
Plan for that, and you're going to be fine. But always, always search for help. If there's something that's on the edge of your ability to do, get help to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go alone.
Don't try to tough it or try to see if you can do it, because you're rolling the dice. You might be able to, but if you miss that one angle and you herniate something, it's not worth it.
Yeah, but that's also a little bit about what preparedness is about, or emergency response. Let me say that rather than preparedness, because preparedness, time is always working against us, right? I mean, that's what I feel like. The days are so short, weeks and months fly by, but there is still time. And Scott is I won't say the perfect example, is an example of allowing
poster child.
I'm trying to be I'm trying to be correct here, right? So, but yeah, absolutely. And there's still time. I always feel like we are short of time, and preparedness should go. You should put that at the top of your list. I mean, you should. I'm very. I have a renewed sense of urgency with preparedness with everything that's going on. So time is definitely something we should talk more about, right? Because pairs, you feel like we have more time. I feel like we have less time, and that can tend to cause us to do things hastily, incorrectly, wasting time, wasting money. And so lessons learned looking back, time is extremely important consideration in everything. I feel like, okay, food storage, I got to get that ready now. Okay, yes, you do. But, step back. We had a great episode. We had Marcelo on food storage. And so that's one of the things that came to my mind when I'm thinking about lessons learned. I feel like I'm pretty well read when it comes to food storage. But then when Marcelo comes on and teaches, it's like, okay, let's start over. I feel like I need to start over.
Don't start over. Start anew, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's a perfect way to say it. Yeah, absolutely.
You don't take all the stuff you have,
right,
walk out to the curb and just huck it in the street and say, it's all yours.
Right? I did have to throw some more stuff away the other day as well.
Bulging
food storage,
cans.
number 10 bulging cans, and so forth. So that's probably one of
bulging.
There we go. Or
the wrong kind of bulge, though.
Everybody's showing their guns on the show.
That's the right kind of bulge.
If you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see the guns. Everybody's gun.
Come on, Paris. You probably work out more than any of us. There we go. Yeah, there we go.
Right. I don't know. I got a little. I used to have a little ball hitch right there. My kids used to call it the ball, but we'll see. Anyways.
See, again, that's something that takes time. You can't rush that. You cannot rush physical fitness, that type of preparation. So step back, take a breath. I mean, I'm speaking to myself here, right?
Yeah.
And talk to the right people. I tend to get pretty excited about things, and I move quickly. And fortunately, I've had the ability to do that, and I haven't really suffered much.
Yeah, you've been blessed.
In wasted money and wasted time. It's been learning experiences for me, and so I've taken them as learning experiences, not as bad experiences. And then, if I get something, which we all have, that didn't work out so great for me, I'll give it to someone else. Right? It's something that I can contribute to someone else's preparedness. That's something that didn't necessarily work out really well for me. So it's all been, or for the most part, has been good. A good waste of time for me, So, and I could go on and on, but I'll shut up there.
So one of my friends back in my college days told me about the time her family hiked Mount Kilimanjaro down in Tanzania.
Mm-hmm.
It's big. It's big. But one of the things that impressed her, and it's impressed me, but really she was super fit. She's like, I hike every day. I play sports. I'm active. She was probably like 23 at the time. And her dad's super active. Her whole family's very athletic. And Kinsey, if you're listening, props to you guys. You guys were rock stars, still are. But she talked about that whole hike, the guides that went with them. They're like, quick to be slow. They kept repeating this, quick to be slow, quick to be slow. And she's just like, why do you keep saying quick to be slow? Because she kept trying to go faster, and they'd say quick to be slow, quick to be slow. And they're like, if you go too fast, you risk not reaching the top. If you go the right pace, slow your roll, go the right pace, you'll reach the top, you'll enjoy the top, and you won't have to get medvaced out. Right. The point they were trying to make is like, you can do it in 6 to 7 days. It's best to do it in 10 for your body to acclimate, for everything to work right, and for you to have less problems overall. And she's just like, going slower, because I wanted to see if I can get to the top as fast as I could. Going slower saved me from altitude sickness, saved me from possibly spraining an ankle, twisting an ankle, doing something that could have gotten myself hurt. And so I'm like, wow, that's life wisdom.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to prepping. Like, you don't have to go Mach 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. You don't even have to be sprinting. And it's better if you're not. Because if you're sprinting, and it's just like if you're driving a car fast. When you're driving a car fast, it's easy to get into tunnel vision.
It's harder to react.
And
quickly.
Your reaction time is completely derailed if something happens. Whereas if you're going a nice, easy pace and you're working on everything and prioritizing the important things, but not going crazy over it, it gives you time to see what's going on, experience life, enjoy life, and make less mistakes.
Yep. There's a reason why I say slow and steady wins the race.
And
I tell that to people in my financial business. Like, a lot of people are like, Paris, I just want to get out of debt. Or they're like, Paris, I'm behind the 8 ball. I'm already old. I want to just invest in some crazy speculative investment. Like, bro, you'll lose more money doing that. You'll lose more time doing that than anything. It really is just like, I mean, I'm sure I can relate to everything, but it kind of the best way to do things is kind of the boring, just routine, just slow and steady. My son, he did his budget today, and he came to me when he said, Dad, I have a lot more debt than I thought I did. And he's like, I want to get out of this fast. I'm like, okay, but listen, you don't want to get out too fast. We need to, so I said, just take a deep breath and pace yourself, and you'll actually get out faster. And that, another thing too, is I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was kind of just thinking to them about how many books I've read this year. And here we are, it's October. And I actually counted. I rearranged my office, and I moved my office, and I got all the books together, and I counted all the books that I read this year, and I'm at 27. I'm about to finish my 27th book for the year.
Nice.
And I'm just thinking to myself, I mean, I'm not trying to say like I'm super cool or anything, but I'm just saying that to read 27 books in a year, you just have to be I just read 10 pages a day from 3 or 4 different books. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that really bite-sized chunks gets you to the point where by the end of the, like, I'm not even in the end of the year yet. I still have 3 more months. I could read another 5 or 10 books, right? So everybody says, I don't have time for that. Really? Or have you just not planned and realized that slow and steady, you just plan it out, set a goal, and then just set this day, every day, what can you do to get a little bit closer to your goal? And before you know it, you're going to be so far along towards your goal. You're going to look back and think, how did I come this far? And I think that's another lesson learned. Like, the more that you can, some of the lessons that I've learned is the more I just put my head down and keep to the plan. It's not always about the goal after all, because if I have a plan and I just do the plan, what will inevitably happen? I will achieve my goal. Some people are so goal oriented that they are all over the place. I think that it's important to still keep the goal in mind, but if you're plan oriented, the goal will eventually happen because the plan gets you to the goal. Does that make sense? So
yeah, absolutely. Of course, I'm thinking when you say that, I think about, okay, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And another kind of saying I live by, I say all the time to myself, when I'm in a hurry, slow down. And that really makes a lot of sense to me because, you know, I make mistakes, right? So,
well, the beautiful thing is, like, what is the trigger that caused this conversation to happen, right? It's our group, our Facebook group, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance. If you're in it, you've seen this post, hopefully. But that's why we're talking about this. It's the lessons from Asheville, North Carolina post that we got. And it's funny because it aligns with so many different people I've talked to so far about their experience there. For the most part, like, I would say heavily to the most part. Yeah. I think we should read chunks of it and kind of talk about it, but he listed 5 lifesavers.
Yeah. Let's start with number 1.
Number 1, and this is pretty awesome. The person who posted this, we don't know who the original person was. He copied it from another group into our group, but number 1 lifesaver, Starlink internet. All the phones say SOS. Can't text out for help, can't call out for help. Don't know what's going on. Plugged in my satellite internet and have been helping the whole neighborhood call loved ones. Everyone is offering me anything from their supplies because it is so valuable. It's funny because I talked to 3 people right afterwards who were communicating to me through Starlink. They're like, hey, we're okay. I'm like, oh, good, you're fine. Like, we didn't lose a whole lot, but then the next day they had tornadoes. I'm like, yeah, we lost our shed now.
Oh, dang.
But we're still communicating. We've got access to the internet through our neighbor's Starlink. Our phones still don't work. I can't reach anybody with my ham. No one close enough is on ham. And I'm like,
so even ham was not really, that's interesting.
Well, they're in the mountains, right? So they'd have to have a tall tower or a repeater they can access, but it's no power to the repeater. Since then, they've been able to access their ham. For the first 3 days, they didn't have access to their ham. This guy. Another guy I talked to, I haven't gotten an update. He's a real big ham guy, so I need to ask him. But it's huge. When you don't have communication, you don't know what's going on. And if everything in the area is out, the one thing I haven't been able to hear from, maybe you guys have heard this, people getting even NOAA weather alerts or using just their FM radio to get news updates, hand crank or any otherwise. Have you got any details on that?
I did hear somebody on one of the posts that I saw talk about it, but I don't have enough memory of what it was to give you a good situation. But I think that's, whether it's ham, I think the lesson learned here is to have alternate forms of communication. Whether, and you don't know, like in this particular situation, it looks like Starlink was the winner, but other situations, maybe the ham is the winner or something else, or Meshtastic is the winner. I would say have as many forms of communication as possible. That's one of the, and while we're here on ham radio, go to hamradioprep.com and enter code PrepperTalk and get 10% off your ham radio preparedness. And Scott and I are almost through. In fact, we're going to have a guy.
I've been such a slacker. I got to finish that up.
We're going to have a guy on in a couple of weeks who is an expert. And I think we're going to have a really good episode there. But
I wanted to
just have forms of communication, I think is the lesson learned. Just have multiple forms of ways to communicate because you never know.
Yeah, and I wanted to comment on the ham radio as well. I've been listening to a lot of commentary about what's going on communication-wise out in Asheville and just out in that area in general. And ham is the big winner from what I hear.
Is
Of
it?
course,
Okay.
I do hear a lot about Starlink and so forth. That has been essential. But ham has been very widely used, very effective. But also keep in mind, what I wanted to point out is that you can transmit on ham radio in an emergency. You don't need a license. That is part of the law. That is part of the FCC code, whatever it is, that you can transmit in an emergency. So those of you who might be hesitating getting a ham radio, getting a cheap Baofeng, like you say, the more options you have, the better. Get to know it, listen to it. Don't transmit unless you have your license or unless it's an emergency. But you can have that in the backcountry, wherever you might be. Have it with you, and if you get into an emergency, use it. Yeah, doesn't matter if you even any chance of getting in trouble, just use it.
It's crazy too, because like depending on where you are, you're going to have a better chance of connecting, right? And if you're super remote, you need to have multiple plans figured out.
Yeah.
Right. Because radios that are line of sight, you can bounce it off the ionosphere if you've got strong enough power.
If you're a HF,
yeah. So learn it now, like guys, learn it now, so you don't have to be in trouble later.
Right.
So you've got a way out. Lifesaver number 2. Solar panels and a 3,000 watt battery pack. I can run satellite internet, electric, an electric kettle to purify water, charge headlamps, electronics, instant pot for cooking, ice maker for the cooler, everything I need. I won't run out of the sun like I will with propane or gas. This thing's extended everything a lot longer. That's awesome.
Totally true. Yeah.
Right.
Especially in those remote areas, you're not going to be able to replenish your gas and propane. And you can store a lot of that, sure, and maybe even a couple of weeks worth. But at some point, he's right. You could run out. But solar, you don't run out of the sun.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, there's another big fat storm coming in, and
you got cloud cover and such.
Cloud cover.
Unless we get matrixed and they intentionally darken the sky. So.
Well, there you go too. Well, I've heard a lot of that as well, but some other comments I've heard is that some of the most valuable things have been their gas car versus an electric car, gas stove, your gas water heater, having a gas chainsaw, right? And especially like in the beginning, obviously when you have those resources that they're there, they work instantly. But electric cars, just useless in a lot of these situations. When it's flooded, electricity and water don't go together very well, right? It's pretty dangerous. You've seen a lot of bad things happen with electric cars and flooded in water.
I don't know if you guys saw this picture, but I didn't do any research other than I just saw this and said that the government has given Asheville, they had a picture of like a dozen chainsaws, but they were all electric chainsaws. Oh. And they're like, leave it to the government to give us electric chainsaws when we have no power to charge them. I was just like,
you'd have a gas generator to charge your electric chainsaw, right?
I didn't verify that, but I did think that was funny. Maybe
that'd
somebody
be typical.
Was, teasing them or whatever. But yeah, let's read the next one.
Which goes right into number 3, gas cans and extra gas. They sold out everywhere. They're impossible to find and get. So if you have them, you've got something. If you can get to a gas station, they're portable. You can run any generator. You can evacuate with them. You can always find them, drive. If you've got gas, you can drive farther to go get more supplies and resupply. You can use it to check on family, but you can't use an electric car that you can't charge if you have nothing to recharge it with. Exactly. So that was number 3. Number 4, knowledge on how to survive without a huge stash. Some preppers spend too much time stocking up and not enough time educating. None of us knew the hurricane was going to be this bad. Some people lost their entire house and all their supplies. Those who know multiple ways to collect water, to purify it, to start a fire, to find food, those are the ones still alive and haven't been rescued yet. I could go for another month if I had nothing but my backpack and my tools. That's huge. He also goes on later in the article to talk about how he lives in an area where there's food in abundance anyways. So that helps his situation because he knows what is edible. But again, that's just like the ham. Study now so that you have it. You know how to use it. Yeah,
I think we all need to put ourselves in that situation to where, for preppers, I'm a gearhead. I'll speak for myself, right? And we think 2 is 1, 1 is none, 3 is even better. But my new saying is, especially after seeing all these people lose everything, except for maybe what they had in their pockets, right? 2 is 1, 1 is none, but be prepared to have none, right? So
That's good.
It's about knowledge, and how do you get what you need?
Right.
And it can be obviously extreme. I can't imagine putting myself through. That's one of the things I constantly dread is losing my preps, not being able to hang on to my preps in an earthquake or something like that. So I'm trying to plan for that. But yeah, this is, everything gets washed away. It is devastating. I don't know how I would react, but
I have a lot more security in my stuff than I do in my skills, and I need to change that. I need to swap that around. I need to have a higher level of security in my skill sets, and then food will supplement that, like extra gear and stuff supplements that. And I feel like I'm smart enough to figure stuff out, but even with that capability, there's still muscle memory. There's still other things. In fact, I talked with a guy recently, and he's like, "Hey, I just went to this." In fact, actually, right before this whole hurricane hit, there was a prepper camp, like a 3-day preparedness camp that had a bunch of preppers up there, learning, developing skills, working on skill sets, and they actually had to clear out the road because of the pre-rain to get to their area before they even could. So they actually got to practice some of this, like real life. And then they ended up starting the camp, later that day, when it would normally have started really early in the morning, because just the roads getting up there were a little rough. So look around, find different places that are offering maybe survival skills, camps, or 2 or 3 day events, or even if it's a day event, just the more of that you can do. I feel like I need to make a list of those things and start adding them to my my list of things to do and plan for, especially as soon as possible. But yeah, and definitely after learning this, I think that that's really critical. And lifesaver number 5, Scott, you want to read that?
Hand sanitizer. Sanitation was rough here. Hospitals are out of power, food, and water. People are starting to smell, and after you touch something, you do not want to get sick and go to the hospital because it's bad there too. So the water you find may not also be clean or safe. So you've got to wash, purify, and then wash. So he washes his hands with water and soap, and then he hand sanitizes afterwards to stay healthy. And that, I just thought about, like, going back to H2Go water purifier. They actually have, in this little system, you can actually create hand sanitizer with it.
Yep.
All right. You can create so many different things with this little system. It's phenomenal. But yeah, like, I always tease my wife about how much hand sanitizer we have. I need to recount that tease. I got to pull back and be nice. But yeah, it's so vital to be able to purify things.
But don't use it every day, right? Because you can build up that resistance.
I look at it this way:
with antibacterial.
I don't use it very often. In a survival situation, I'll use it every day for a little while.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's really what he's getting to. But yeah, other things he's relied on heavily: cash. No power means no debit cards can be used. Disposable cutlery and plates. I love that idea. A 4x4 vehicle truck so you can go out and tow people out, help other people, and do resupplies. Solar battery radio, and then dogs for company and also to alert if someone's outside. So for security. That's awesome. This is so phenomenal. Thank you, whoever posted this originally. And thank you for who put it into our group. Don't know who likes to have their name on air versus not, so I'm not going to say your name, but thank you. You know who you are. But now here's the kicker.
Yeah.
Things that didn't matter as much as he thought. Guns. Shane, how's your blood pressure?
No, I totally agree. And it really depends on the length of the emergency, right? That's really what's gonna, and the population density, where you're at. A few things that really stood out to me in Asheville, in this area, is that a lot of these remote cities they hadn't been in contact with at all for days, and that's where I think us preppers, we want to be. We want to be as far away from civilization as possible. Yet they got themselves, or they became stranded. And like they said, no one had any idea it could be this bad.
I think another thing to consider. I think another thing to consider in this situation is that Asheville's up in the mountains.
Yeah.
Mountain people usually stick together more than you would say in a city or suburbia. So in a city, if you have a disaster, you're going to find a lot more people quick to loot, quick to vandalize, and so guns can have a higher likelihood of usage and for protection and defense there than in a city like Asheville, which is way more rural. I'm sure there were a lot more. You know, there's an old saying that rednecks are going to save the world, and I don't doubt it, because there's so many good. Yes, they have so many skills, like legit, right? So up in those mountain communities, you're going to find a lot more of that community where they're not going to be willing to loot their neighbor because they know them, and that's probably why guns are not as important. I think that's one thing to consider, anyways.
Yeah,
what's interesting, because he goes on and talks about how there's the strangers in his community really came together in the area. They all came together. They found some person is short on something, somebody else had an abundance of it, and they could trade and barter. And right, we talk about it all the time. Barter and trade is such a valuable skill, and they just kept doing it, and it worked out well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like this this post. It was so valuable. I think it's good for all of us. And one of the things that Shane shared earlier is that you know, do we have enough time? And if you're talking about, you know, for me, when he says that I feel like we have more time, I feel like we have more time for when, you know, the end of the world, so to speak, Jesus comes again. I feel like that's still, you know, off a little bit. Enough. We have no time to waste. We have time, but no time to waste. That's my thought. Yeah. However, when it comes to natural disasters, like today, right now, as we're speaking and recording this, we're going to go live in about 15 minutes. There's a hurricane hitting Florida. The people of Florida have no time. Their time is right now. And so that's the thing, is that what are you preparing for? If you're preparing for Jesus to come back, you've got some time. Repent now, though. You know, get your stuff ready now, though. Don't delay. However, if you're preparing for the hurricane that's going to come next week because you're in the middle of Florida, you have no time. Like, you got to go now. Like, you got to get, and it's probably already too late, frankly, because you should have got water already. You should have had your boards for your windows already. And that's my brother-in-law just moved there to Florida, and he's I'm grateful that I don't know what he had to do to get the boards ready. I don't know if it comes with the house. I don't know if when you buy a house in Florida, do you get the boards? Is that part of the, you know, sale? You know what I mean? But he boarded up his house, and he says he's okay. He's going to let us know and keep us up to date on what's going on. But you got to, you know, if you're in an area where there's a potential for regular natural disasters, you don't have time. Like, you got to move in almost prepared, especially if you're moving into Florida from June to November. You got to move in with hurricane ready, you know, preps ready to go, because it could come at any time.
I have a feeling that there are going to be quite a few people who regret their decision to move to Florida, and who are going to start looking for other places to go after this. You know, it's I mean, it's unfortunate, but I mean, it's the hard truth as well. Is, you know, we have dangers here on the Wasatch Front we've got to prepare for, which, you know, we've experienced a small earthquake a couple of years ago. That's really been the extent of my experience with earthquakes. It's not like a regular occurrence like hurricanes. Well, at least here. And so it's definitely a little hard to prepare, but like you say, Paris, you buy the house, it comes with all the accessories to hurricane proof it, right? It should, right?
Sure,
and
they don't.
And there are trailer homes right on the beach, right?
Yep.
Which is a pretty bad combination, and so I think it really takes just a lot of conscious preparation to try and expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
I think that's
another thing that was really different about Asheville versus some of the other areas is that a lot of times when you have a flood or you know, or a hurricane, tsunami type things on a flat or on flatter ground, you're going to have the momentum from the propulsion of the storm. Well, in Asheville, it's a mountain community, and it's kind of down a little bit in elevation. And one guy was saying part of the reason why this was so bad is that the rain came down, sure, but then it started to gain momentum as it moved, as it kind of came down in elevation and hit the cities. If we were flat, we wouldn't have had as much damage. But because we were down lower in elevation, coming from a mountain that was right there, the velocity of that water coming down was probably, I don't know, several X
Increased.
what it would have been if it was just kind of in a flat suburbia, So that's something that if you're in the mountains and you're in an area that's kind of, you're low off of a slope, just be aware of that. I think that was a really good point that the guy made. He's like, he was trying to say, like, why was it so bad in Asheville? And part of it was because the velocity of the water coming off the mountain made it even worse. And I was like, that's a really good point.
Well, it's crazy because it's like you to know what to prepare for, you've got to kind of do some research in your area, right? Natural disasters wise, there are some indicators of things that are frequent, right? A few episodes ago, we talked about topographical maps and being identify water flow areas. Go back and watch that video, watch that episode. Asheville, exactly what happened is those ravines filled.
Yeah.
All the topographical maps, that's where the water's going to go to the lowest point fastest. And then it's going to move. I mean, those people that are in Florida right now, it's a completely different scenario. Just like, I don't know if you guys saw what happened in Acapulco, Mexico. Hurricane John hit a few days ago. And a lot of it's 6 feet underwater.
Wow.
They had this is one of the news stories was 40 crocodiles escaped a sanctuary. So now you've got flooding and crocodiles.
That's scary. That's scary.
There's no good, in any of these scenarios, it's tough, but you've got to do what you can to stay safe. If you can get out of there, get out of there. If it's too late, you've got to reinforce and you've got to basically create a stronghold. I like what Governor DeSantis recently said. I don't know if you guys saw this to the press. He was talking about looting, and he's like, I'm telling everyone in Florida to make sure that if you're sticking around through this, make sure you're well armed. And looters, here's our stance. If you loot, we shoot.
Another kind of reality check to that. I heard that the sheriffs were even telling people, look, if you're going to stick around, make sure to have your ID and your photo ID and license somewhere visible, easy to find. Because if we have to come out and find your body, we want to know who you are right away. So I was like, that's a reality check right there. Like, they're telling people, if you stay, and especially if you're in the direct line of fire, we don't want to have to guess who you are when we find you. So please have some form of ID that's easily accessible. And I'm like, wow, that's a reality check.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what can we do from all this information? We can adapt our plans. We can reprioritize our time. We can adjust our pace, right? For those of you listening, for me, I'm like, oh, there's some things I can change. I can definitely improve on. I can fix a few things that I think I've been over prioritizing, and other things I have been under prioritizing, I can modify.
Yeah.
Thanks to all the feedback from these two scenarios, these two disasters. Every disaster out there has lessons, right? Life itself has lessons. If we neglect the lessons, we're doomed to the same fate as those we should have learned from.
Absolutely. And it doesn't hurt to be always prepared. There's no reason to not always be prepared. Have your gas tanks full, have some extra gas. I heard so many stories about people just about to run out of gas or running out of gas, and the gas stations being out of gas, and you get stuck in the storm and you're dead. But food storage. I mean, these are things we're constantly talking about, so no need to go too deep into them, but just reminded every day, be thinking about what if, right? What if?
Exactly. Well, any last minute thoughts, Scott? Shane?
I think I pretty much said it.
Scott hit it on the head.
Keep moving forward.
Yeah. I think that it's critical to look at these disasters around the world and see what other people are doing to survive them, and then make adjustments in our own preps. They're great examples, and count yourself blessed to be in an area that isn't under some kind of serious disaster right now. and pray. If you're available and capable, donate. There's several places where you can donate to the people and relief funds. If you're close enough and you feel like you're called upon to do it, get in your car and drive. There's several caravans headed those directions to help with those types of things. If you're in those areas, if you're doing anything to help and you want to have us kind of help spread the word, let us know. Shoot us an email at preppertalkradio@gmail.com. Let us know what's going on, what we can do to help, what we can, even if it's just getting the word out and helping to get more word out. One thing that's been really good since this disaster, we don't know for sure why, but we're attributing it to some of the things that are going on. But our emergency preparedness and self-reliance group has had more people join in the last 5 days than we've had in the last several months.
5 months.
So the good news is that the word is getting out. People are realizing, more people are waking up to the preparedness lifestyle. So please be kind to your friends and family that are waking up, that are brand new, that are realizing, oh my gosh, what's happening over there could happen here. What can you do to teach me, help me? And remember to get them started on the basics, help them slowly but surely get where they need to go, and be that mentor for them in the preparedness situation. So thank you again for listening to Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded. We are the podcast for the prepared. Please go check out our friends at amp-3.net and pick up your first aid kits. Also, just as a reminder, we survivalfrog.com is still working really well. The only problem is they changed the code for us. So please use Prepper Talk 10, Prepper Talk 10, Prepper Talk 10 to get 10% off over there, so that we can continue to support the show and get you guys some good discounts. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you next week.